financing college, and the foundation of AISSMS is based on the working principle of the great leader and visionary, His Highness Rajarshi Chhatrapati Shahu Maharaj of Kolhapur. And our mission is based on his thoughts, that is, for the development of society through dynamic education and continuous improvement in teaching learning process to ensure quality education. And this results in several achievements such as AISSMS IOIT is recognized for the best practices of reward system by AICTE. Our college is not accredited with A grade, and also three departments are NBA accredited. Engineering Education Excellence Award in 2015 by Indo-Global Chamber of Commerce, Industries and Agriculture. We are ranked 182 across India and 38 in West Zone by AICT Intershala Internship in 2019. Coming to the today's topic on augmented reality. The technological advancement on the virtual reality and augmented reality, we all of us can see they have resulted in the product that inform, entertain, and engage audience of all the ages. This is maybe the requirement of the future age. Now, regarding this today's topic, there are many queries for me, like how big the augmented reality market and how it is going to enhance the marketing experience, how exactly the augmented reality will work, etc. And depending upon this, how will be the nature of the future job for our students. Actually, we can hear you today, Mr. Max, because of Mr. Sarang Nerkar sir, and Mr. Sarang, as you know, that we are having an MOU with AIC-ADT, where our students are doing lot of projects which are agriculture based, and if this augmented reality can help the jobs which are based on the agriculture, and agriculture is nothing but the heart of India. So looking forward for further association towards the online internship under your guidance, then the projects, seminar, webinars. Apart from this, if you can get the problem statement where our students can work on such statement, that will be helpful for us. Thank you all of you, and I welcome Max and Sarang once again. Thank you. Thank you, sir. Dipali ma'am.
Thank you, ma'am. Now I would like to take this opportunity to introduce today's speaker, Mr. Max Lu, Director of Academic Partnership and Research at the Los Angeles Times. He is working directly with the Executive Editor, Norman Pearlstein, and CTO, Mr. Bain. Max is responsible for bringing new strategic initiatives and technologies to the LA Times through research and development programs, as well as collaborations with external institutions such as universities, think tanks, and other corporations. He was brought to the LA Times through the recommendation of leaders from several industries such as Mr. Mickey, previous Secretary of Commerce at the United States under the Clinton government, Mr. Feng, a famous researcher and higher education administrator, and Yuan Yu, Board of Director at IEEE. Previously, he was working as a visiting scholar at USC CCLP, Center on Communication Leadership and Policy, where he worked closely with Director Geoffrey Cowan on issues at the intersection of technology, media, and policy. Prior to coming to LA, Max co-founded ManLab with Professor Steve Mann, who is commonly known as the father of wearable computing, to research and commercialize innovations in the field of wearable computer. Now I request Mr. Sarang, please brief about research contribution by Mr. Max. Over to you, Sarang, sir.
Yes, thank you, Dipali madam, and good morning to everyone. Max, as Dipali madam mentioned, was a former researcher at the Humanistic Intelligence Lab at University of Toronto, where I also was a researcher under the guidance of Professor Steve Mann, who's known as the father of wearable computing. And over there, we worked on various innovative projects like an open source augmented reality headset. In fact, the world's first modular augmented reality headset, which was made open source both in software and hardware, in technologies such as high dynamic range imaging and a novel concept called sequential wave imprinting machines, which allows you to visualize invisible waves and sense the capacity of sensors to sense. So um, Max has had an experience in developing novel augmented reality technologies. And that knowledge he has been able to utilize at the Los Angeles Times to use augmented reality in the domain of digital marketing, where he has come up with novel ways of promoting food and beverage industries and many more projects that he will talk to us about. So that is a brief bio about Max from my end. We've presented at various international avenues together, such as the Canadian National Exhibition, as well as Mobile World Congress in Barcelona, where we actually were able to host a fashion tech show with augmented reality headsets in it, and many other occasions where we've been able to not just display our technology, but also consult to eminent leaders about the use of technology in different domains. We also went to China together for a brief time, where we were able to discuss on how this sort of a technology can be utilized in developing countries. And what we are doing now is trying to get these technologies here in India so that it can be used for the benefit of common Indian man. So Max, welcome again. And Dipali madam, over to you to start the session. Thank you.
Now I request Mr. Max to proceed with the session. Over to you, Max, sir.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for everyone's warm introduction. This is really flattering. And to me, I see this more as an opportunity to exchange ideas rather than more like a lecturing style. So if you guys have any questions, I'm more than happy. We should all discuss it all together. And I will just go ahead and start sharing my screen. And can you guys see my screen right now?
Yes.
Perfect. Like everyone, like the three very kind people have introduced me today, I'm going to talk about my experience in augmented reality in digital marketing, specifically food and product. And I'm sure you guys have all heard of augmented reality, and many of you guys must have seen, some research on augmented reality. So I think today I will try to do something different, which is, talking about the difference or show the difference between research and real life, which, that's a big difference that I learned through this opportunity here at LA Times. So first of all, I was like, just to point out one thing, the older poster had me as like the director of research at Los Angeles. So it's like, that's not correct. I am the director of academic partnerships and research at the Los Angeles Times, not the city yet. So I just want to, make that absolute clear to everyone. So I guess a little bit introduction about myself and the LA Times. So right now I serve as the director of academic partnership and research at the LA Times. Simultaneously, we recently started our innovation lab, which I was honored to serve as the founding director for it. And the LA Times is a 139-year-old company, fairly old, but a lot of technologies. It's not very experienced when it comes to digital technologies. Actually, for most traditional newspaper companies, digital technology remains a challenge. So to me, it's when I was in university, all I had to deal with is new technology. But then now all of a sudden you go to a workspace. How do you bring that technology to the workspace became my biggest challenge. And to be honest, it was the most fun part as well. And like Sarang said, before I joined the LA Times, I was briefly working at ManLab together with Sarang. It's a research-focused company where we conduct research in the field of humanistic intelligence, which includes augmented reality as well as wearable computing. We headquartered in Canada, specifically Toronto, but then at the same time, we have tried to establish lab in United States, like the Silicon Valley and China, as well as India, which was spearheaded by Sarang himself. And I received most of my education in the University of Toronto. I did my bachelor there and my master there. I was doing my PhD, but before I could exciting opportunity to start a company and to work for the LA Times sort of grabbed my attention. So technically, I am still a PhD student, but just like with some working experience right now. So that's kind of like a brief overview of myself. Like Sarang said, I was born in China, but then later educated in Canada, but now I'm now working in the US. I have never been to the US. I've never been to India, but Sarang is one of my best friends. We talk constantly, and I've always planned to go there. It's one of the oldest nations in the world, and it holds great importance culturally and in any other means. So I would love to have, in the future, hopefully there will be an opportunity to go to India. So when Sarang told me that he wanted me to do a presentation on how augmented reality can be used for food, especially agriculture industry, which is vital to India, to me, that was like no-brainer. I want to do it, and here is my best attempt at sharing my experience. And again, I just want to let everyone know that I don't think this is a lecture. This is a share of experience from someone who is in a similar background with you guys, okay, from academia, but now is in the industry and try to do some changes. So first, I mean, this is the only 2 slides that are about concept, which I think it's fairly important. We've all heard about the terms like augmented reality, virtual reality, or mixed reality, but to many people, these are just buzzwords, and it's really hard to understand the difference. So this is my 2 minutes attempt to try to tell you what are the difference. So now this is a structure that proposed by a researcher back in 1992, where he believes that we are the digital world and real world lives on the same continuum. So on the left-hand side of the continuum, you have the real world, the real environment. Everything that you're looking at, you're touching, that is the part of the real world is on the left-hand side of the continuum. On the right-hand side of the continuum is a virtual environment. Everything in that environment is made up virtually. Nothing in that environment is real. And when you blend in some virtual elements into the real world, like when you're bringing a digitally made components into the real world, we call that augmented reality. So that's what you see, the second from the left, below the continuum. And on the other hand, imagine you're in a totally virtual world and you bring in some real world elements. We call that augmented virtuality. So this is a very interesting concept, which would greatly help you to understand how different technology kind of lies on this continuum. And between the 2 extreme, between real world and total virtual world, is called mixed reality. So where real world information mixed with virtual information. So sort of a more visual experience is like this. So on the left-hand side, when you go to a scene, when you look at a mountain, when you look at ocean, you look at the real world. So that's the real environment, which sits on the left-hand side of the continuum. And to the rightmost, you see a man wearing a VR headset. So he doesn't see any real world information. Everything he sees is made up digitally. So that's what we call virtual reality. And what's interesting and seems to hold the greatest potential is the picture in the middle. So you are still looking at the world you are in. You're not being brought into a totally virtual world. You're still in your bedroom. You're still in your living room. You're still in the classroom. But in the meantime, technology allows you to bring digital or virtual information onto your real world. So in this case, when a virtual information or digital information being added to your real world, we call that augmented reality. So that's the kind of the quick introduction of the different concepts. A few years ago, a lot of people say, virtual reality is the future of us. It might be, in a decade or two, but right now, virtual reality still have a long way to go. It's really hard to achieve the ideal state, which is called suspension of disbelief. The moment when you read a really good novel, you forgot it's a novel. It's all made up. You believe the characters are real. That's what the virtual reality technology is trying to achieve, but we are still far from there. So up until before we reach to that stage, augmented reality seems to be prospering these days because it doesn't require a total immersion. And the fact that it allows you to stay in your real world actually gives you the context. For example, in the picture in the middle, this person put a chair, a sofa, in front of him, visualizing what the sofa looked like in his room, and without necessarily needing to buy it first. So this kind of technology that allows you to see before you buy is what gives augmented reality a huge followers right now. And as you can see, we can imagine how this can be totally be used for our use case, the food industry. So now I want to say, there's a difference, of course, between the thing you do in a research lab and the thing you do in company. Share some of the research we did in our research labs. This is one, our research lab deal with augmented reality, wearable computing, and many other things. This is one of them. In this particular research, what you see is a visualization of the progression of ultrasonic sound waves. So we hear ultrasonic waves. We couldn't hear them because they are ultrasonic. As I said, they are not audible, but they exist in our life. So as a scientist, your natural curiosity would tell you, I wonder, what do they look like? So this is our research trying to visualize it. So on the left-hand side, what you're seeing are 6 ultrasonic sensors that are emitting sound waves at the same time. And as we all know, when 2 people talk at the same time, what happens? You interfere with each other. So this is exactly the same case here. The 6 ultrasonic speakers on the left-hand side are emitting at the same time, and they are interfering with each other. So what you see in front of you is the progression of the interference between the 6 ultrasonic speakers, something that you cannot see with the naked eye. So this is what we call augmented reality. You are still looking at the real world. We are overlaying this digital information to allow you to see things you couldn't otherwise see. We got to publish some nice papers on this. Very interesting. So this is one of the research we did. Similarly, in the same vein, today I focus my talk around augmented reality. Although, like Sarang said, we did research in wearable computing and other things. I think they are a bit off topic, so they won't be my focus of my talk. So that was a little bit context. So here, continue. This is another research that we did. Very similarly, in this case, we are visualizing sound waves. When we play violin, we can hear the music, but do you ever wonder what does the sound wave look like? This, again, is a research driven by really nothing more than curiosity. You want to know what a sound wave looks like because you can hear them, but you cannot see them. So we made such a device called, it's a phenomenological augmented reality locking amplifier to make this happen. And this is another one where you can probably spot Sarang in the middle looking at, I don't know where he's looking at, but this is the research that we did together where we visualized the gravitational wave. Again, one more thing, like we remember maybe a few years ago when LIGO was detecting gravitational wave. I believe India was part of that as well, very important research. We were wondering, we can hear it, but can we also see it? So with the help of augmented reality technology, we are able to visualize how does the gravitational wave interfere with each other. And this is how we use augmented reality in the research labs. You don't see it on the market yet because honestly speaking, these technologies are still at their early stage. They're still quite bulky. It takes a lot of effort to make it happen. It takes a little while, so it's not mature yet. This is sort of where I was before joining the company. The upside is you got to use a lot of creativity. You get to research on things purely based on your curiosity, and you go ahead and make it happen. This is one last research that I want to share with you guys that we did in the lab, which sounds totally crazy, but again, it's research, it's curiosity driven, it's not business driven. Remember I told you guys about the problem with virtual reality? I don't know how many of you guys have got the chance to try virtual reality. If you haven't, I strongly encourage you to go try it. And I'll tell you the experience is not great. It's going to make you dizzy. It's going to make you want to throw up. And in most of the cases, you wouldn't believe that's real. So now let's talk about why is that. For example, if you put on a virtual reality headset, watching a video of a roller coaster. So the virtual world, you're in a total virtual world. Everything you see is just like you're in a roller coaster. And now the game starts. You go with the roller coaster up and down and move around. It's very scary. But what you realize that you get dizzier so much faster, and you don't trust it. Your brain is not persuaded that you're in a virtual world. Why is that? Let's think about that. Right? So the reason why that happens is in real life, when you go to a roller coaster, when you actually go sit on a roller coaster, you're not only getting visual stimulations, you're hearing the stimulation, you're hearing the sound of the wind, and your internal inertia unit are also measuring the change of your body. So you're actually experiencing inertia as you sit in the roller coaster. But when you put on a VR headset, all the stimulus you get was visual. Your body, so what your body is believing is, okay, my eyes is telling me that I'm in a roller coaster, but my body telling me I'm sitting on my chair. So a very primal reaction of your body is going to happen at this time. Your body will think that you got poisoned. It's like, our ancestors, when they were still like in the forest, finding stuff to eat from the forest many hundreds of thousands of years ago, if you eat a mushroom that's poisonous, your body will want to throw up because it's trying to help you. It's trying to help you get rid of the bad stuff. And that's basically the same reaction that's triggered. When you put on a VR headset, your eye is telling you, hey, you're in a roller coaster, but your body is telling you you're sitting on a chair. And now your brain will think, oh, did I get poisoned? Throw up first to protect yourself. So that's what happened. So in this particular research, what you're looking at is we put people in an environment that's called a sensory deprivation environment. You are floating in a tank with water. It's salted water. So when you add salt into the water, you're increasing the density of the water. And when the water density reaches to the same density as your body, you're floating. That's how Dead Sea works, right? So in this case, we add salt to the water to make it the same as human density, and we heat it up to human body temperature. So when you're lying down to it, what happened is something very magical happened. You cannot feel your body because everything feels the same. And in this case, we also turn off the light. We put you in a VR headset. We get rid of all the noises. You're in an absolutely quiet environment. And before we even show you the roller coaster video, you start to hallucinate. Your body starts to see things that were not there, and they're very believable. In this case, when we showed you the whole roller coaster movie, a video, it becomes so much more realistic. It is so much easier to achieve the so-called suspension of disbelief because your body can no longer tell that you're sitting on a chair. Your body doesn't know where it's at. So it tends to believe the main stimulus, which is the visual stimulus. So this, the last research that I'm sharing today, those are all fun, but as you can tell, look at the picture. It's not a mainstream thing yet. You don't expect everyone to lie in a tank to do things like this. So I'm going to go to my next part, which is, what do I do in companies? So before I joined the LA Times, MANLab is different. MANLab is a research company, so it's more like research lab. LA Times is a real company that have existed in for 140 years. Okay, so it's a lot of bureaucracy, a lot of history, a lot of legacy. So when I joined the company, I was told that my task was to bring those cutting edge research into companies. So I was very ambitious when I go there. So what do I actually do when I get there? It's Zoom calls, or Webex calls every day. It's like a lot of phone calls, not that much research. This is what happens in a company. You are talking to people, and rather you don't get that much time to do things. Sometimes, maybe 20% of the time you get to do something productive, which is actually fun. So this actually is a part of clip for the product that we'll be talking about today, using augmented reality for food industry. So let's get right into it. We at LA Times have tried augmented reality many years ago. This video came from 7 years ago or 10 years ago. So when you hover your iPad over the newspaper, you see a video. Or we can make advertisement interactive. I'm sure many people have thought of the idea. But the problem is no one uses it. And that's honestly the biggest problem for AR and many other new technology. You can develop the technology, but the key is how do you get people to use it? If no one uses it, then it's a technology that is wasted. So augmented reality fits this dilemma in many, many areas of applications. We invested in the technology 10 years ago. No one liked it. No one wants to pull out their iPad and scan the newspaper. It's very, very cumbersome. You could easily just see a much more interactive advertisement directly on your iPad. Why bother scanning your newspaper? So when I joined the LA Times, we thought, we're not just here to play with new technology. We are here to make useful things. And we thought, what's the most useful and iconic thing, maybe in the United States? It's hamburger, it's McDonald's, right? So I thought, okay, we're going to start with that. So this is what we built eventually. We built an article called LA's 21st Essential Burgers. And of course, you have to make it compatible with both a mobile phone and a desktop computer. So let me quickly take you to the website and show you sort of what it looks like. Can you see my Chrome browser and the website? I would assume that.
Yes.
Yes? Okay, perfect. Thank you. So this is our article where there's a very cute GIF here where you can show people how things are made. And I'll show you the trick on how to make it in a bit. After that, a nice cute little illustration on how to use this, because this is a new thing. A lot of people don't know how to use it. And the problem with new technologies, many of them they're just so hard to use. People don't know how to use it. People even blame themselves for saying, oh, why am I so stupid? I don't know how to use it. But in reality, it's technology not properly designed. So we have little instruction on, you can see the burgers, in the burger, and eat the burger. Of course, when you're on your cell phone. And when you scroll down, you see all the 21 burgers. You can expand to see their description. You can hover over to see where they're at. And if you're on your mobile phone, you can click on them and see them in AR, in augmented reality. But if you're on a computer, you get to see the 3D model. Some of them are not necessarily AR. This is more like a 360 video, which I'll tell you in a bit. This is very easy to make and very useful in terms of showing what you have. So that's just a kind of a quick walkthrough of what the website looks like. My slides. So okay, let's come back to this. There are two types The first one is what I just quickly showed you. This is not called augmented reality, but I think this is very useful, so I might as well just share it. Strictly speaking, you would call this a 360 product video. The difference is people cannot take this and put on their table. They can only see a video of a spin around. But this is still very useful, very helpful in terms of showing what the product looks like and how user can interact with it. On our website, people can actually drag the thing and see different angle of it at their will. So this is type 1. Type 2 is what we call AR. So here's an example of it. I just took those from Twitter. So what you see is you're looking at our website on a mobile phone, you click on the picture, you're loading the model, you tap the icon, and now you have it. You're spinning the 3D model, and then you click AR, and you can try to place on the real world. It looks fairly real, and it's not there. It's not like entirely real, but this industry, this field is making progress every single day, literally. So, I mean, it's pretty good, right? For a 3D burger. It looks like a burger. And one thing that we did not anticipate when we first made the project is how many people actually like it. We thought AR is a new term for most people. It must be very, very hard. Probably a handful of young people will play with it, and other people just don't know how to do it. It turns out not the case. If it's interesting, if the technology is there, people will try it themselves and they will share it. Look at this. It's in Paris. People in Paris shared it. People in Turkey shared it. People in Korea shared it. People in Hong Kong shared it. People everywhere was sharing this food. That's something that we did not expect at all. So again, one surprise thing that we got from this, people loved it. I mean, they place it at places that they put it in places that are not supposed to have food. What's the matter? It's very fun and people really enjoyed it. And compare with the research we did back in the lab. This is not the most high-tech thing ever, but it's popular, it's mainstream, it's effective, and it's fun. So I think that's one thing I learned in the workspace is when you're in the industry trying to apply technology, you don't necessarily have to go to the best of the best. You don't need to use carbon fiber for everything. You don't need to use titanium for everything. Although you as an engineer would always tend to say, let's go with the best material. But then the question you need to really ask is, what makes most business sense? And in this case, we choose a rather simple technology. I mean, comparing with the research we did in the lab. These are all, elementary technology. Use it in the right way, and you got very good result. So looking at some of what people are saying, LA Times Food has been killing it lately. See, doing some AR burgers. Someone saying, finally, someone came up with a usage for augmented reality that isn't gimmicky. That was very important to us. AR has been called as a gimmicky forever. How do you develop something that is actually useful? And it seems like showing food is one thing. And someone said this is one of the coolest applications of AR tech. So, we did not anticipate that. This was a risky project when we first invested in it. In our 139 years of history, we've never done an augmented reality product before. When you talk about technology, people don't think newspaper company as a technology company. So when we decided to invest in the product, we didn't even believe in ourselves, right? But then the result is we tried it, people really liked it, and now we're going to do more and more of it. So sometimes, you want to take that risk and see, maybe I'll give you the result that you were never expecting. So going deeper into this product a little bit, what are the elements of the product? First of all, design. Now, this design has been around forever, but it's still very important. We chose because we're showing burgers, which, as we all know, a fairly American thing. And what do you think of when you think about burger? Fast food, McDonald's, and other brands, right? So this is what we were trying to do with it. The whole style, the whole color scheme was chosen around fast food chain. So when you look at the website, it reminds you of fast food. It reminds you of those things. And that's very important. You want people to have appetite after reading this. So to us, it's an important element of it. And for this, by showing people the actual ingredient, you build trust, right? You bring clarity and you build trust. So this, again, what you're looking at, the spinning burger, is not an AR, but it's a great, great low-tech, but new technology that can be very effective for food or other product marketing. Anyone looking at this burger will think, at least I know what ingredients is in there, so maybe I can trust it. And we all know in agriculture, in food, trust is everything. And of course, we went through iterations of designs. So the left-hand side is the beginning of it, where we follow the LA Times traditional style. Cool black and white, very modern. The problem is it just doesn't look appetizing. Compared with this one, right? The whole thing tells you this is a fast food, come consume it. But this one's like, okay, this is a newspaper company, and I don't want to eat there. So design, regardless of what technology you use, design is always an important part to convey your message. And again, those cute illustrations and those nice little burger icons, none of them are new technology, but they all collectively contribute to the success of this product. And by the way, the 3 illustrations you see that are very cute, 2-card designer, 3 minutes to draw, very fast, but then people today also appreciate the authenticity that those carries. So, those things are all helped us to beat our own expectations. So now, going to, how things are made. The first one is actually so simple that I only have one more slide to tell you how it's made. It's off the shelf, you can buy it and do it on your own. Again, this is not a sponsorship. This is just like me sharing what we did. There is the startup. There are many companies that are doing that probably, that have streamlined the entire process that all you need to have is a cell phone. So I'd like to play this video. We ourselves used it. We're not trying to sell anything, but this is something.
Folio 360, a smart turntable that creates stunning 360 images using just a smartphone. All you need is a light box and a smartphone to use the Folio 360. Let's start when you're ready. Your phone will communicate with the Folio 360 to automatically take photos. Now you can create awesome 3D content all by yourself. Folio 360 makes it easier to bring 360 images to life on your blog, online store, or any other website. We're excited to see all the.
See how fast that is to create something like that? It doesn't require a lot of technology. And in fact, that's what's good about technology. It's like they make it so simple and affordable that it feels like there's no technology involved, but it's effective. I'd say, for most products, that's all you need. And it's really quick. Anyone can do it. A cell phone and a spinning disc. But now, we are talking about augmented reality, which is, sort of my field of research. But honestly, when it came to LA Times, I didn't use any of my research skill. It's like a totally different skill set. We will get into how to make augmented reality. Oops, I think, let me see what happened. Give me a second, my keynote just. So how do you go from something on the left-hand side, which is in this case, we went to an archaeology site and got some of their, I forgot what this is, but it's like several million year stuff. How do you turn something from what it looks like on the left to something that looks like on the right-hand side? this workflow has not been standardized, and it's still very much a trial and error process. And if I can be upfront, there's a learning curve because it's a new thing. Eventually, this will be as easy as, maybe not as copy paste, but as easy as Photoshop. But right now, it requires a bit of learning. So there are several steps associated with it, and we will go into each one of them. But basically, you start with capturing photos, lots of photos, and then you process them. You turn them into 3D, and then do some optimization. Retopology, UV layout, baking, material optimization are all about turning that 3D thing into a small enough 3D file that can be shown on your phone. And at the end, convert it into the right format. So we'll get into them. First step, capturing photos. There are many ways to do scanning, but what we found to be most effective is a technology called photogrammetry. Basically, it's a technology where you take photos of every angles of this object, and then put those photos together to reconstruct a 3D file, a 3D object. And in this case, for each burger, we took about 200 photos. We use a professional DSLR. Your phone can do it, but a DSLR will do it much better. And in this case, although it's 200 photos, it's actually very fast because all the process is automated. So it's basically you click go and you watch it do the process. Okay, so minimal human effort involved. But again, a lot of photos. The second step is you want to go through the photos. Why is that? Because the final 3D file will be constructed using the information that those photo captures. You want to make sure that those photos are crisp, clear, and sharply focused. If you have a blurry photo or you have overexposed photo, it can give wrong information. Say all these are different angles of the burger, which we take some piece of the information from this one, some piece of the information from that one, and put them together. But if all of a sudden there's a picture of an orange, it's going to confuse our algorithm because we're trying to take some elements of the orange and put it on this burger. And you can imagine the results is not going to be pretty. So you want to go through a photo to make sure that the photos are clear and sharply focused. And this process can be done fairly fast once you get the hang of it. Just click next, next, next. Oh, this is not clear. Let's delete it. And that's called the second step, processing photos. The third step is 3D reconstruction, which here involves, this is the field where there's still a lot of algorithmic improvements opportunity here. Basically, what it does is since we took so many different angles of the photos, we can try to find similar photos. If I took a photo from this one angle and then the photo that's right next to it, the two pictures will basically look identical because they just vary in a small degree. If we algorithmically identify the shared elements of this two photo and almost do a trigonometry, you can find a geometrical relationship between those photos and restore a pixel on this original object. So that's why the more photo the better, because redundancy brings you reliability and robustness. So in this case, we use several hundreds of a burger photo to construct on the right-hand side what many of you guys might recognize as a point cloud. It's basically sparsely distributed points across the space that contains the 3D information of those photos. Point clouds are very rich in information. They have a lot of information, but the problem is those files are usually pretty big. They can be up to several gigabytes, which is not something you want to put on a phone. So what do we do? That's why we're going to do several steps of optimization to make it work on a phone. So retopology is the process where you turn something from the left-hand side to the right-hand side. And what is the left-hand side? The left-hand side is, if you see, there are triangles, right? There are little small triangles that are connected to dots. Those the dots that the triangle connects to, like the nodes, are the points in your point clouds. So what we see here, all those on the right-hand side, you sort of see a burger made up of points. And when you connect adjacent points with edges, what you get is a surface that's made of triangles. And those triangles are very hard to calculate. They're very hard to process. So what we want to do is to turn them into a more regular shape, which in this case, our topology turn them into this kind of square or quadruple square shape. And there are different topology technology, of course, as you can guess. But basically, this is, you're sort of making the original and very disorganized surface into something that's more organized and easier to manipulate. Next step, you flatten them. So I guess imagine this as when you're peeling an orange. An orange is a ball shape, but after you peel it, you can flatten it. And this is exactly what we are doing here. We want to flatten it. Why do we want to flatten it? Because we want to put colors on it. Right now, there is no color. We want to put color information on it. So UV layout is sort of the process where you flatten it and then getting ready to put a layer of color and the surface texture onto it. And then we have baking, which is again another step in optimizing it. It's you are basically putting the color and surface information onto the object itself. For example, there are metallic part of your model, and there are, silk would look different than stainless steel, which will look different than granite. So baking is a process where you bake all those different property of information onto your object to make it actually look realistic. And actually, food has proven to be one of the more challenging one to do, because if you guys are experienced with agricultural food photography is challenging because the badly taken food photography will look disgusting. Food need to look appetizing, and appetizing is hard to do. And the next step is material optimization. We have several different kind of tools to do it. Remember I said UV layout, where you sort of flatten something from 3D to 2D. Material optimization is where you try to perfect that 2D thing you have. So on the left-hand side is what they look like after you put them back in 3D. And then on the right-hand side is what does it look like after you flatten them. So on the right-hand side, you can use Photoshop to change the brightness, to change, if there's some problem with the skin, with the drawing, or with the color restoration, you can do that. You can try to restore that in Photoshop. This is where you make it look really real, really good. And finally, conversion. Depending on what platform you use it, you want to convert it into a different file format. For example, there are website platform, there are headset, and there are different devices, and they all have different requirements. But this is what do they look like afterwards. If you look at the top of the burger, you see some reflection of the lights. The light itself did not come from the model. The light came from the actual light that were in our office. We set the material property in such a way that it reflects it. So these are all, the high level understanding of the process involved in making it. And as a result, we have our burger. You can still tell that it looks different than the photography. LA Times has some of the best food photographer in the world. Their photo looks stunning. But with our burger, although it looks good, there are limitations. The advantage is you got to play with it. And we took a further step. We brought it to physical paper. In this case, we borrowed the platform of Snapchat, but many other platforms can do it too. So what it does is you open up a newspaper and you find the snap code, you tap it, and now a 3D burger appears on your paper. Again, something that's fun and got some attention. This is like, how can you creatively interact with your audience? And this, for traditional media, again, 100 something year old media, we've never done this before, but we thought we'd give it a try. Today's augmented reality does not need to install an app or anything. Most phones are capable of doing it right off the bat. So these two products are not done by us. There's online examples, but I want to show you. Sort of give you an example of how it works. For example, you can use if you're in a browser, you can open the camera and scan something and see the model of it. Or if you're in a showroom pointing a phone at it, you got to see 3D of it. There's some reaction we're getting it. Can the LA Times do this for every article? As a print subscriber, there are many articles I want to just instantly send to people without having a look at them separately, and they want a QR code. And now what happened is, after trying this, people came back to us with great ideas. This is not something we thought of before. Maybe we should have it. Again, like when you start to do this kind of innovation, people come to you with great ideas. And these are some of other products that we're doing for sort of other teams at the LA Times. And not just us. Other newspapers in the United States are trying it too. The Washington Post tried to let you see what the astronaut suit looks like. The New York Times had an AR project where they show you how athletes are actually performing. And USA Today was also trying something similar. So it's sort of like everyone's realizing, oh, this seems to be a very interesting industry. And then now it comes down to the question, what's the use case that is actually helpful to people's life that's not gimmick? And to us at LA Times, what we noticed that food is showing food and product seems to be a great use of augmented reality. And last thing I want to mention is, for this product, it's done entirely by interns. You don't need PhDs or like Google. You don't need to be Google to invest in this. Technologies are all there. It's about bringing them together and try them. This was my team who made this product happen. None of them had augmented reality experience before besides one. And his experience is not that relevant. We basically learned everything up and made it happen in 10 weeks. So if we can do that, you can do that too. One thing I want to say is, for immersive experience like this, it is by its nature a multidisciplinary challenge. There are many elements you need to consider. What's the overall feeling you want to give to people? How do you want people to interact with what you build? So design is an inherent part of it. And how to make those happen? What are the technologies involved in enabling those experiences? What platform can you make it available to? You don't want to just tailor to the top 1%. You want to make sure that it works for most of the people. So how to make that happen? That's, again, a technical challenge. And for us specifically, we are also looking at things. What are the things that have news value? We also need journalism talents. But then if you're looking at agriculture, you find it similar. You need people who know how to design, because you don't want to build something that's badly designed that people don't want to use. So you need design talents. You need technical talents who can build what you designed. And at the end, you need a subject expert, whether that's agriculture, whether that's food chain, that's like supply chain, whether that's like, consumer marketing. You want people who know what they're doing to tell you, hey, here's a real opportunity. Because again, I want to warn everyone that we as engineers, sometimes we got so excited about technology that we forgot to ask ourselves, is it actually useful? So you want people who actually deals with customers every day to tell you, to give you a wake-up call to say, hey, what you're doing might just sounds cool, but no one cares. So that's a difference between industry and research. When we do research, We do whatever we want. We apply for grants, we publish paper, everyone applaud for our creativity. But when you try to deal with the market, you are not the biggest stakeholder anymore. You need to ask, what does my audience want? So thank you. That's all of my presentation. I did not specifically get into agriculture because, I totally confess I'm not an expert in that, but I believe that some of the experience that I shared might be beneficial to what that industry is trying to do. So if you guys have any questions, now's our Q&A time.
Thank you, Max sir. I request our student coordinator to proceed for question and answer session. Over to you, Yash sir. Yash.
Thank you, Deepali ma'am. Good afternoon to all. Thank you, Max sir, for sharing your experience with us. We have some questions from the attendees as well. So the first question I would like to share is, what are the big growth areas ahead in augmented reality?
What are the big what?
What are the big growth areas ahead in augmented reality?
Oh, growth areas. I definitely think, from my observation, content creation is becoming a big part of it. So think about this. For this new industry called augmented reality, there are several sectors, several components. First one, hardware. You need to have a hardware that actually does that. And who are making those? It's the big companies. Apple is doing that. Google is doing that. Facebook is doing that. They're building hardwares. And then we are looking at software and things that sort of design softwares. Again, those are opportunities for bigger companies because building software may sound easy, but it's actually one of the most challenging things. You need to build software that everyone can use. It's not something that a small team can easily do. I'm not saying they cannot. It's hard. What is something that everyone can do, right? While those technology giants are making technology so easy to use, what we can do is, how do we creatively take those tools and build something? Just like us, we didn't invent any tools we use. What we did is took the tool they built and put it on our use case, which is make 3D burgers. If we were to develop a phone that can display AR, or if we were to develop a software that does that, it would take us years, and we're not going to be able to do that. So I think for most people, smaller teams, individual business owners, I think the biggest growth opportunity is think hard about, what are the content that you can make with those better and better technology. And I do believe that's one thing that can be done that has great growth potential. But on the other hand, if you're a researcher, the question is different. Sorry, were you trying to say something?
Okay. Thank you, sir. We have another question as, how augmented reality can be used for managing the challenge for growing food demand?
Well, I think growing food demand, first of all, again, I want to confess that I'm not a food supply chain expert, but I do want to say that in terms of, we have food demand. Well, there are really two things that are happening all the time simultaneously in the world. On one side, you have increasing demand. On the other hand, you have increasing waste. We all know that, right? Restaurants waste a lot of food. We sometimes waste a lot of food. So how do you properly balance that? And can augmented reality be used as a technology to show you, in which area of this country are food having a surplus, in which area is having there's a need, and can we use augmented reality to promote food from one area and quickly let someone from the other area to understand, what are you selling? Can I buy it? Like if I live in Los Angeles right now, and you're trying to sell me something from India, what does it look like? You're telling me let's say you're telling me a fruit that I never heard of. So what does it look like? How do I trust it? You send me a picture is just like a picture. What if you can give me a 3D model that I can put on my plate and see it, right? I think balancing, augmented reality is a really powerful tool of telling people what you have and telling your stories.
Thank you so much, sir. Another question is, can glasses of virtual reality and augmented reality be teaching instruments used in education process?
Totally. And I believe that might be an area of research that Saran himself is working on right now. The answer is yes. So augmented reality, like I said, the ability, both augmented reality and virtual reality has the components called virtual world. It brings either an entire virtual world to you or some part of it. It allows you to see things that are not physically in your room. So I think this is particularly meaningful for areas that lack sufficient education resources. In the United States and Canada, where they're like really well developed country, if students say, I want to go to Israel to see what it looks like, their parents fly them over, right? But in many developing countries in the world, most of our East Asia, Southeast Asia, or in Africa, you cannot just say, I'm flying there to see it. Yes, video is one thing, you can watch videos, but virtual reality, the ability to interact with the scene, it's something that AR and VR bring that video just cannot match. Imagine yourself walking into the White House, seeing what it looks like, and being able to navigate your view and compare with a camera where you basically follow the camera. You don't have options. So I think AR and VR is a more proactive approach to learning compared with video. You sort of take control of what you are trying to learn, and which in many cases is probably more effective.
I have a couple of points over here as well, actually. This is Saran. And yes, Max, as you mentioned, that is a domain that I personally and my company is already working on. In fact, what we've done is we've tried to create training modules with experts like you, who are world expert, world leaders in the domain, not just leaders from India. And we've been able to create digital learning modules that we are using to train below poverty line, and these are people with extremely low family income, and tribal students in remote parts of India, so that the expertise from experts such as you can be brought to them in a very lifelike interactive format without really having to have the expert in front of them in person, or having to have that interact with them online like you are with us, right? That is another thing that people in these sectors below poverty line and tribal regions don't really have. So how is it that we can take this knowledge to them without needing internet and using an experiential learning module? So that is already something that we're working on. And if anybody is interested in getting aboard on that, we'd be happy to discuss. And of course, people like Max are always contributing to such efforts.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, Max, sir. Another question is, does augmented reality has good job opportunity in other fields like instrumentation, civil, mechanical, etc.?
Yes, I think, if I may refer back to a presentation that I shared earlier, let's look at this field, right? Like for us to do such a small and modest product, we need expertise from design, computer science, and journalism. We all know computer technology is an important part of it, but let me just be honest. If this product only had me as a technology person, we are never going to make it. Technology is what we call enablement. You make it possible, but you need expertise from other fields, right? If you are, depending on what the application is, I cannot say, it really depends on what the end use case is. And definitely people from other industry will be able to contribute, especially because you have the knowledge about what your industry needs. If you ask, me who studied computer to say, like, let's go to automotive industry to use augmented reality for car maintenance, I would have no idea. Like, I know the technology, but I don't know what to do. I don't know what the problem is. Don't know where to use my skill. So I think that's where you can use it. Think of, think of AR as a like frying pan. It's a tool. So there are people who build a frying pan. What do you cook? What do you make out of it? There are different cuisine, and that's where different skill set, different industry skill set come into play. So I do genuinely believe that augmented reality will open up opportunities for people in many industries. You don't need to try to do what the technology people are doing, but you have to think hard how this technology will revolutionize your particular industry. And then you need to become an expert in leading that change.
Okay. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Yeah, and another question is there any negative impact of augmented reality and virtual reality technology in future?
Is there any negative impact? Is that the question? Sorry, I missed it.
Yes, sir. Is there any negative impact of AR and VR technology in future?
Yes, I think that's a great question. First of all, it's harmful to your eye. It's a digital display that's for most VR headset, the display is like not even like just a few inches in front of your eyes. And although it feels like they're really far away, but your eyes is very smart. It knows that it's staring at a screen that's right here in front of you. So if you try to put your cell phone right in front of your eye and stare at it for 10 minutes, you'll feel strain. So we are definitely in one way overloading our visual stimulus, like our visual capability to sense. But I mean, other than that physical pain, I do think those technologies, just like internet, is it helpful? Is it harmful? I think yes and yes. It brings both, and depending on where you use it. And people can get really addicted to virtual reality or augmented reality. And if that addiction becomes harmful to your life, then it's not good. So, again, I bring it to, the end use, the people who create the application. How do you want to use augmented reality? How do you want to use virtual reality? Some people use it to, advocate for violence. That is, I think very harmful. But some other people try to advocate for peace. Again, at the end of the day, it's a human choice. I think AR and VR is very neutral. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Another question is, in the first step, we clicked photographs of the burger. When flattening the image, what if we flatten the burger along with the colors? It would reduce a step of coloring and help us to skip directly to the next step.
Do you mind repeat the question? I just want to make sure that I understand it properly.
Yes, sir. In the first step, we clicked photographs of the burger. While flattening the image, what if we flatten the burger along with the colors? It would reduce a step of coloring and help us to skip directly to the next step.
That is a great question. And actually, when we take photos of burgers, you're right. We capture two information. One is the sort of the spatial information. Where are those little dots? The second part is the color. However, they don't, at this point, you can see there are colors. But the problem is this thing, like I said, the problem is this thing can be several gigabytes big. We need to compress it. So recoloring is part of our compression technology. Ideally, theoretically, if our cell phone is so powerful that we don't need to decompress this, this point cloud contains most of the information we need. We just need to, we should be able to, like, from this step, this is only step 3. From step 3 to the last step, we are not adding any information into this. We're only reducing information in order to make the file smaller. So like I told you, here it's maybe 2 or 3 gigabytes. Guess how big it is here? It is 1.2 or 1.3 megabytes. So that's a lot of compression. Recoloring is part of the recompression process. So, if our phone is good enough, or if this technology, if 3D reconstruction technology is optimized enough, we don't need to do recoloring because all these photos already contain color information. So all these are, to be honest, they are compression technologies. So yeah, that
I
would be my
agree.
answer.
I have a point here to make actually. I'm also here on the live stream on YouTube, and one comment that I've seen 2-3 people mention is that the YouTube stream is smoother than the Cisco Webex stream. And that is exactly the point that Max was trying to explain. You can display the technology using using various means, but making the experience easy and light on you increases the chances of engagement, which is one of the basic principles of digital marketing. You want maximum engagement and least number of hurdles in the process. So as Max said, from step 3 to last step, it is mostly just trying to make the experience better and smoother so that you're able to interact better with the already present point cloud. But it's great that we're getting technical questions like this, because it shows that the steps that are being taken from step 3 to the last steps, there is a lot of innovation that can still go on so that you can come up with your own compression techniques and probably come up with something that's even more efficient in the future.
Okay. Another question, Max sir. Can you please elaborate the use case with online shopping website?
Perfect. That's a really, really huge industry, and a lot of people, a lot of huge players are coming into it, notably Amazon, which we all know. And then there's a Canadian company called Shopify, which quickly become the largest e-commerce website of the world. Apple visited Toronto, Canada. Specifically, he went to the company called Shopify and tried their AR shopping experience. What he tried is, pick up a phone and look at this object and put it on a desk. How did they create those things? Pretty much a similar process as we did. If you're doing this called photogrammetry, which is part of a reverse engineering process. Some of them, another way to create 3D model is to take it from 3D design software. That's a different approach, which I'm more than happy to get into. But going back to the question for online shopping, I think it is becoming more and more mainstream. IKEA is using augmented reality to let you visualize what a furniture would look like in your room. I think there is an incentive for those companies to provide this AR experience for you, because they all have the return policy. You can return things you don't like in 30 days, but that will incur a cost on their side as well as your side. You need to drive back and forth. If you preview and see what you buy and decide the thing I really like before you buy it, it reduces cost on everyone, and it also reduces the burden on this, our logistics system as a society. It optimizes our system. And also, look at the pandemic. We're in a global pandemic, and I think augmented reality technology could really be helpful in terms of helping you to choose what you want and to see things that you otherwise has to walk over or drive over to see. So I think this is I do genuinely believe that augmented reality would change shopping experience forever. What has been bottlenecking is exactly what I show you guys. It takes 7 to 8 steps experience. It's a lot simpler than 5 years ago. It's so much more simpler than 10 years ago, but there are still steps you need to go through. And those steps are something that not everyone can master yet. In my prediction, it might just take another 5 years for the technology to be as easy as take your iPhone, take 10 photos around your thing, and then boom, here you go, a 3D object. I think those technology are coming. If you think about the fact that the latest iPad and iPhone has LiDAR on them. LiDAR basically gives you the ability to measure the physical shape of the thing in front of you. And I think very soon that your phone will be able to capture both the spatial data and color data of the object. And I think that's when every individual, small business owner can benefit from augmented reality, which I think is coming very, very soon.
Okay. Thank you, Max sir. Another question is, it's like common problem in artificial intelligence and augmented reality is modeling and data collection. How industry solve this problem?
Data collection. So that's a very broad question, and if I may share my experience, I'd say companies are failing at protecting individuals' data privacy and rights. And again, look at augmented reality as like any other technology. There are three sort of groups of people in this process. One group is the people who develop the hardware, the software, the big giants, Facebook, Google, Apple, who develop the software package that let the second group, us, the LA Times, to use and create augmented reality experience. We use their tool to create the experience and give it to the third group, which is the customer who look at the thing. However, not all data comes to the LA Times. A lot of the data goes to Apple, a lot of data goes to Google that we don't even know. So I think data and privacy is a gray area here, and that's why the government need to step up their game as well. So I do think that's a valid question, and I think if you are a small business owner, you created a little model of your food, you put it online, you probably don't even know what data are being used. You just use a tool that's so convenient. The data is being given to the, again, Facebook, Apple, and Google directly.
Thank you, sir. We have done with the questions. Now I will hand over to Deepali ma'am.
Thank you, Max sir. Thank you, Sarang sir and Yash. I request our beloved principal, Dr. Pradeep Mane, to give vote of thanks. Over to you, sir.
Yeah, thank you, ma'am. Am I audible?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, hi,
Sir?
Max and
Sir,
Sarang.
you are not visible, sir.
Hello.
Yes. Yeah.
Visible?
Yeah, sir. Okay.
Yeah. A very good morning to one and all present for this wonderful webinar. I would like to thank Max for sparing his valuable time with us and explaining the concept of AR. And we are in a very simple and lucid manner. The question itself showed that you created an interest amongst the participants. And usually it happens that if the interest is not there, then we have very few questions. But I feel that looking at the questions being asked, it self proves that you explained them the concept in a best possible way. Secondly, I would also like to thank Mr. Sarang once again because it was his initiative, and also AIC-ADT, Dr. Nalaude and his team for giving us such a wonderful speaker like Max, who is an expert in this domain. And once again, I would also like to thank our coordinator, Ms. Dipali Evle, head of the department, Sarde Madam, for making this event a wonderful event. And I hope that, yes, the participants surely might have got some insights. And as of now, I have seen very few researchers working in this area, at least in India, in this domain. But the insights which you have given might have given a thought to them. And secondly, yeah, today it is really this technology is picking up as we are saying that almost everywhere, right from in the consumer electronics or maybe the consumers, the commodities, this area is taking far ahead. And one thing which you talked about the food technology, it is bound to happen. But one more thing is since we are working closely with Sarang and his team at AIC-ADT, they are working on the agriculture part of it. The other day we had something on precision agriculture. Prior to that, Sarang had a session, wonderful session on AI and ML in agriculture product. So one thing is that if it is possible for bringing this AR into this field of agriculture, surely I hope that it will be very useful to the farmers. And when I'm talking in particular in the context of India, yeah, the technology may be costlier. But yes, if something begins, some beginning takes place, maybe for the farm products, surely it will also give some added advantage to this area of agriculture sector, where we know, at least in India, it's almost, we say that 60% of the population is in the agriculture sector. But when we talk in terms of the GDP, it is not that high. So I think that if some technology like this is thought of coming into this domain, because there are very good products, and I feel that if the consumer also gets to know about this technology, or he gets the facility through this AR, surely the it may be advantages to very few, but surely it may bring in some profiting to the farmers at the end. So with this, once again, I would like to take this opportunity to thank Mr. Max, Mr. Sarang, his team, and all the coordinators and all the participants who have been here joined us. Thank you very much, ma'am.
Thank you. It's a
Yeah,
pleasure.
thank you, ma'am.
Thank you for your kind words, sir. So thank you, Max, sir. Hope we will meet soon.
Yeah.
We will arrange
Yes.
some. We will arrange some webinar related to augmented reality specifically in agriculture, and we will meet soon for the same.
Yeah, I would like to participate in any future discussion, and I'm looking forward to an in-person visit. I'm definitely going to fly to India to visit Sarah.
Yeah, welcome to India. Please, we are waiting for you.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank you.
Most welcome, Max.
Yeah, thank you. It's a pleasure.
Okay,
Thank
all
you,
the panelists are requested. They can leave the session. I will wait for participants if they have any query regarding the session. So all the panelists can leave the session.
Thank you.
Okay,
Yeah, thank you.
great. Thanks a lot. Thanks a lot, Max. Great session.